This house is too small for a real family. My sister scoffed, as she walked into the home I just bought for them. My mom nodded. Maybe next time, book a mansion. I smiled and said, of course. The next morning, I canceled the catering and sent back the house deposit. The next evening, when 30 guests showed up hungry, they saw I didn't grow up rich. Neither did my sister, nor our parents. So I don't know when exactly they decided they deserved luxury. Maybe it started when I got a better job after college. I was working in tech, not making millions, but enough to live comfortably and help my family a little. And I didn't mind helping, not at first. But over the years it went from, thanks for covering the groceries, to, you have to pay for mom's new washer and dryer, to, why aren't you contributing more? I always told myself it was temporary. That they were just going through things. That if I kept helping, eventually they'd settle down, appreciate things, maybe even get back on their feet. But no. It just got worse. When my sister, Nicole, got pregnant with her second kid and moved back into our parents' house, the guilt-tripping doubled. My mom called me every other day. Your sister's kids need their own rooms. We're all crammed in here like sardines. You're single. What do you need all that space for? It got to the point where I started feeling like a bad person for not buying them a house. A literal house. So after months of pressure, I did it. I found a small but clean place in a quiet neighborhood, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, with a tiny yard and a single garage. It wasn't huge. I couldn't afford huge, but it was new, unfurnished, and had just enough charm to feel like a fresh start. I signed the paperwork. Drained my savings for the deposit. Even booked catering for a little welcome celebration. Had the place deep cleaned, brought in new appliances, made it feel like home. I kept the whole thing a surprise. On move-in day, I drove them there myself. Told them I had something to show them. We pulled up, and my sister didn't even get out of the car at first. Just looked at it through the window and asked if this was the temporary spot. I told her no, this was for them. Their own place. She laughed. Actually laughed. This house is too small for a real family. My mom, standing behind her, shook her head. Maybe next time, book a mansion. I don't even remember what I said. I just smiled and said, of course. I was still standing in the driveway with the keys in my hand when they got back in the car and drove away. They went straight back to our parents' place. No thank you. No tour. No asking about the neighborhood. Just insulted the house and left. That night, I sat alone in the empty living room. There were trays of catered food in the kitchen, flowers by the window, and a personalized welcome mat by the door with their last name on it. I called the realtor the next morning and asked what it would take to list it again. She warned me I'd lose money reselling so fast. And I did. Nearly 10% of the house's value vanished just like that. But I couldn't look at that place again. Couldn't drive past it without remembering their faces. So I canceled the catering for the housewarming party and sent back the rest of what I could. I figured that was the end of it. It wasn't. Not even close. 3 days later, I got a weird call from my old neighbor, the one who lived across the street from the house I had just listed. She said there were a bunch of people standing in front of the house. Like a party or something. Cars parked up and down the block. Some of them even tried knocking on her door, confused. I told her I had no idea what was going on. The house wasn't mine anymore. But something in her voice made me get in my car and drive over. By the time I got there, it looked like a small wedding was happening without the bride and groom. People in dresses, guys in slacks, kids running around. Balloons. Gift bags. Some guy was unloading folding chairs from a truck, looking annoyed. And then I saw Nicole and my parents standing near the front door. My dad, who hadn't been involved in any of the earlier drama, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Nicole was in full hostess mode. Laughing. Hugging people. Pointing toward the house like it was theirs. The problem? They didn't have a key. The house was locked. The realtor had already taken down the welcome mat. The new, for sale, sign was staked into the yard. Someone asked Nicole when the doors were opening. She turned around, saw me standing on the sidewalk, and froze. Then she walked right over. You didn't cancel the party? I told her I had 3 days ago. Her face twitched. She looked back at the guests, then back at me. You said? Of course. You said it with a smile? I reminded her what she said. That the house was too small. That it wasn't good enough. That they didn't want it. She blinked like she didn't remember. Or didn't care. That was before I told everyone. They think this is our house now. What do you expect me to do? Say we're homeless? I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside and motioned toward the for sale sign. The guests started to notice. One of them asked if this was some kind of joke. Another asked if the event had been moved. Nicole snapped. She turned to the crowd and said there had been a miscommunication with the realtor. That I had gotten the dates wrong, and the house wasn't moved and ready yet. She promised everyone they'd be invited back soon for the real celebration. And then she had the nerve to whisper to me that I'd better fix this before she looked bad in front of her friends. I left. The whole way home, I kept thinking maybe that was the end. Maybe they'd be embarrassed enough to finally let this whole thing go. But I should have known better. Because the next day, they showed up at my place. All of them. Nicole, my mom, even my dad, who looked exhausted before he even knocked on the door. They didn't want to talk. They wanted answers. Why did you list the house? Why would you humiliate us like that? Why didn't you warn us? They actually thought I owed them an apology. I told them I didn't want to be their ATM anymore. That the house was a gift, and if they didn't want it, that was their choice. But I wasn't going to pretend anymore. Nicole told me she had to tell people it was hers. She already posted photos. Announced it online. Her friends had seen the pictures. Her boyfriend's family was supposed to come see it next week. That's when it hit me. They hadn't just been ungrateful. They'd decided to take the gift and flip the narrative. To turn it into their win. To make themselves look generous. Accomplished. Successful. Using my money. My effort. My name. Without even asking. And now it was unraveling. And they were about to make a bigger mistake. One I didn't see coming until it was too late. The next time I heard from them, it wasn't through a knock or a phone call. It was through a group text my sister sent to our extended family. Hey everyone, sorry again about the mix-up at the house. All cleared up now. Realtor confirmed closing is happening this week. We'll do the celebration next Saturday. Same place. Can't wait to show everyone around our new home. I stared at the message for a full minute, trying to figure out if I was misreading something. Nope. They were still pretending the house was theirs. Worse, they were doubling down. Planning a second housewarming for a house that not only wasn't theirs, but was actively on the market. The realtor had even scheduled 2 showings that week. I texted her right away, warning her what was going on. She didn't even sound surprised. Said she'd seen stranger. Asked if I wanted her to delay the open house. I told her no. Let them find out the hard way. That Friday, I drove by after work. The house was still untouched, lights off, blinds drawn, lockbox on the door. A couple, for sale, brochures were wedged under the mailbox. Saturday came, and I got up early. I figured they'd either back out or pull some sad attempt at damage control. But they didn't. By 4 p.m., the street was packed again. Balloons, folding tables, coolers. Nicole had apparently brought food this time, from a gas station. People wandered around the yard like tourists trying to figure out how to get in. They didn't have a key. Again. Except this time, they did something I didn't think they'd do. They broke in. I don't know how. Maybe they forced the window or popped the lock. Maybe they bribed one of the open house agents. All I know is when I pulled up around 4:30 to check on things, the door was open, music was playing, and a bunch of people were walking barefoot on the brand new floors with red Solo cups. I was parked across the street, sitting in my car, trying to decide if I should call the police, when I saw the realtor's car pull up behind me. She stepped out and looked at the scene in front of us like she was watching someone bulldoze her commission check. Then she looked at me. Did you give them permission? No. Then we have a problem. We walked up together. People started quieting down as we entered. Nicole was halfway up the stairs with a cousin, giving her a tour of the rooms. My mom was in the kitchen, rearranging store-bought cookies on a tray like she owned the place. When they saw the realtor, they froze. She asked one question. Who gave you access to this home? Nicole said it was their house. That they just hadn't gotten the new keys yet. That I could confirm everything. I didn't say a word. The realtor didn't argue. She pulled out her phone and called the police right in front of them. Told them there were trespassers in a listed property. Said it could be a liability issue if anything got damaged. My mom started whispering. Nicole grabbed my arm and told me to fix this. That I was ruining everything. That I'd already told everyone it was theirs, so why was I being so petty? That's when I turned around and left. 5 minutes later, I heard sirens. I thought the cops showing up would be the end of it. That they'd be too embarrassed to continue whatever fantasy they built around that house. I figured they'd slink away quietly, tell everyone the deal fell through, and move on. But I should have remembered, my family doesn't lose quietly. For the first day or two after the house party disaster, there was total silence. No calls, no texts, not even passive-aggressive social media posts. Just a weird vacuum, like they were collectively pretending I didn't exist. And I would have been happy to leave it that way. Until Monday morning, when I checked my work email and saw the subject line. Urgent, compliance review, immediate response required. My stomach dropped. The message was from our HR director. Short and to the point. Someone had filed an anonymous tip alleging that I'd misused company funds to purchase multiple properties for personal gain, and was potentially laundering money through family-owned real estate. I reread it 3 times before it made sense. It sounded ridiculous, like something pulled straight from a conspiracy forum, but it was official. And it had landed on the desk of people who actually had the power to make my life miserable. I spent the next 72 hours scrambling. I had to provide proof that I'd paid for the house out of my personal account. That it wasn't part of some scheme. That I wasn't involved in anything shady. It wasn't just humiliating, it was dangerous. I worked in a position that required financial trust. If there was even a shadow of doubt, they could have suspended me, maybe even fired me. The investigation eventually cleared me, but the damage was done. I was pulled off 2 key projects. My manager told me to keep a low profile for a while. I knew what that meant. My chances of getting promoted that year were dead. And I knew exactly who was behind it. I didn't need proof. This had Nicole written all over it. But just in case, I started documenting everything. Every message. Every voicemail. Screenshots, emails, the group text where she claimed the house was hers. I made a folder on my desktop titled Self-Defense. Just in case this spiraled further. Then came the realtor's call. Someone had vandalized the property. Spray paint across the garage door. One of the back windows shattered. Cigarette butts and beer bottles all over the front porch. Someone even ripped out the "for sale" sign and broke it in half. Taped to the front door was a piece of paper, scrawled in permanent marker. "Hope your empty little house keeps you warm. You deserve it." She asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no. The cops wouldn't do anything unless they caught someone in the act, and I didn't have the energy to chase ghosts. I thought that would be rock bottom. It wasn't. 3 days later, I got something in the mail. An actual letter, in a plain white envelope, no return address. It had a weird, shaky handwriting, like someone trying to disguise their style but doing a bad job at it. Inside was a single piece of notebook paper. Nothing on it but a message. "You've done enough. Fix what you broke or you'll regret it." Taped to the bottom was a photo. It was me, standing outside my office building, coffee in hand, my ID badge clipped to my belt. Taken from across the street. Blurry, but unmistakably me. I just sat there for a while, staring at it. It wasn't just about the house anymore. This wasn't about hurt feelings or family drama. This was about control. Image. Power. They were trying to make a point, that if I embarrassed them, made them look small, there would be consequences. But what they didn't realize was that I'd spent most of my life biting my tongue around them. Taking hits, letting things slide, thinking keeping the peace was worth it. Not anymore. Because if they wanted to turn this into a war, I was finally ready to fight back. After the photo, everything changed. I didn't tell anyone. Not HR, not the cops, not even friends. I didn't want to explain why my own family might be stalking me. That was the worst part, knowing that no matter what I said I'd come off like the unstable one. So I stayed quiet. But I started watching. Checked over my shoulder every time I left work. Scanned my rearview mirror at night. Changed the locks on my apartment. I even bought a cheap security camera for the hallway outside my door. Just in case. But for a week, nothing happened. Silence again. No texts. No vandalism. No weird packages. I almost started thinking maybe they'd scared themselves with their own escalation. Maybe they were finally done. Then I got a call from the realtor. She sounded off. Said she had an update, but her tone was clipped, like she didn't know how to say it. Turns out, someone had made an all-cash offer on the house. Well over asking price. No inspection. Just a fast close. When I asked who, she hesitated. Said it came through a shell company, but she managed to trace it back, unofficially, to someone using my sister's name as a managing agent. It didn't make sense at first. Why would Nicole want to buy the house now? And how? She didn't have that kind of money. Then it clicked. She wasn't buying it with her money. She had convinced someone else to buy it for her. Probably her boyfriend. Maybe a new mark. Whoever it was, they thought they were investing in a great deal. A flipped house in a quiet neighborhood, supposedly a gift for a single mom trying to start over. She was trying to take the house back. Not because she wanted to live in it, but because she didn't want me to have the last word. It wasn't about shelter. It was about revenge. I told the realtor to stall. Said I needed a few days to think. She asked if I was sure. It was a good offer. I could recover the 10% I'd lost, even make a small profit. I said no. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove to my parents' house. Nicole wasn't there. My dad opened the door and looked at me like he expected a fistfight. But I wasn't there to scream. I asked him, calmly, if he knew what was going on. He didn't even pretend to misunderstand. He just sighed and said Nicole had been telling people for weeks that the house was hers. That I gifted it but then took it back out of spite. That she was the victim. Then he said something I'll never forget. I warned her this would end badly. You think she listens to anyone? I left without another word. On the way home, I stopped by a storage unit I hadn't visited in over a year. Inside were boxes of documents, receipts, records. Everything from the past 10 years. Financial statements. Letters from my family asking for help. Screenshots. Copies of bank transfers with their names on them. And something else. A handwritten agreement, signed by Nicole 2 years ago, stating that she would repay me for a car I helped her buy. $4,000. She never paid a cent. I called a lawyer the next day. Not to sue. Not yet. I just wanted options. Because I was done playing defense. The lawyer read through everything. Quiet at first, then more focused. He asked for timelines, account details, and every scrap of evidence I had, and I had plenty. After an hour, he leaned back and said something simple. You've got leverage. More than you think. He didn't mean criminal charges. That would have been messy, drawn out, and honestly not worth it. What he proposed was faster, civil pressure. Reputation, money, legal exposure. Enough to scare them without dragging me into court for the next year. We drafted a cease and desist. Addressed to Nicole and copied to her boyfriend, the one apparently fronting the house purchase. It included detailed mentions of the fraud, the false claims, the HR complaint she'd made under a fake name, and the photograph she'd sent to my home. We attached a copy of the signed debt agreement and added a formal notice that if the harassment continued, I'd be seeking repayment, plus interest and damages, through small claims court. Then we added something else. A list of every name mentioned in the false HR complaint. Including 2 who happened to be mutual contacts between me, my employer, and her boyfriend's company. I had no plans to use it. But she didn't know that. The letter was delivered the next morning. 12 hours later, I got a text from an unknown number. You made your point. I'm done. Happy now? No name, but I didn't need one. Later that day, the realtor called again. The buyer had backed out. No reason given. I kept the house on the market a while longer, but eventually sold it to a quiet couple with a baby on the way. No drama, no fake celebrations. Just a clean deal. Nicole never reached out again. Neither did my mother. My dad sent a Christmas card that year, no message inside, just his name scribbled in the corner. The funny thing? I didn't feel triumphant. There was no great satisfaction in winning. Just relief. Sometimes people think revenge is this big, fiery moment, shouting matches, courtroom showdowns, public takedowns. But the real kind? The kind that lasts? It's quieter. It's choosing not to pick up when they call. It's selling the house and never looking back. It's realizing that being related doesn't mean being responsible. And it's finally understanding that some gifts aren't rejected because they weren't good enough, but because they were given to people who never deserved them in the first place. It's been a month now since I mailed that letter and finally shut the door on all of it. No more surprise parties, no more anonymous complaints, no broken windows or stalker photos. Just quiet. It took a while to get used to. The first week, I kept checking my camera feed like I was expecting someone to show up. I'd glance over my shoulder when leaving the office. Even kept my phone on silent, convinced another wave of chaos would come crashing in any second. But it never did. I guess when people like that realize they can't control the narrative anymore, when they lose the ability to manipulate, guilt, or twist the story in their favor, they go quiet. Not because they've changed. Just because they've lost. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Nicole's boyfriend moved out 2 weeks ago. Apparently, he saw the letter and didn't want to get dragged into some crazy family mess. No clue where she's living now. My guess? Back at my parents' place. And them? They've gone full cold shoulder. No calls. No messages. Not even a passive-aggressive Facebook comment from my mom. It's like I never existed. But I've started sleeping better. Eating better. Working without looking over my shoulder. I even got a new project at work, one I almost lost because of their nonsense. It's nothing flashy, but it's mine. Like my peace. I think the biggest shift wasn't what they did. It's what I realized about myself. For years, I believed that helping them meant proving I was a good son, a good brother. That maybe if I just gave a little more, tried a little harder, they'd stop looking at me like I owed them something. But some people only see generosity as weakness. They don't stop taking, they just wait for the next opportunity. And the second you stop giving, you become the villain in their story. So yeah, I lost some money on that house. I lost time, energy, even part of my reputation for a minute. But what I gained was something I didn't even know I needed: clarity. No more obligations. No more manipulated guilt. Just freedom. And I plan on keeping it.